Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. My name is Eric Bramlett. I'm joined by Tammy Melchien. Tammy, how you doing today?
You never let me say my own name.
That's a great question. We'll start over. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Big Idea. Okay. All right. Why don't you start?
No, I don't know what to do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. I'm Tammy Melchien, and this is
Eric Bramlett.
And we are coming to you about the Jesus Is series. That is going to be our series leading up to and through Easter.
And this is different than the last couple years, right, Tammy? Because in the last few years, we've had kind of a standalone for Easter. Easter at community, right? Something like that.
I think that's the
Community
way it went.
at Easter. So this is different. It's a series called Jesus Is, and the last week of the series is Easter Sunday.
Don't be nervous. It'll be good.
Don't panic. Also, the other thing is it's what I like to call a 5 and 4. And what that means is that we've got 5 big ideas in 4 weeks, and that's because of Good Friday being in the middle of one of those weeks. We've got. Let's go ahead and address the Good Friday stuff. Talk a little bit about maybe kind of in the past the way Good Friday has been and how it's going to be different for this year.
Yeah, Good Friday, I think, started really not as a centrally kind of sparked thing. And so it's been a little all over the place over the last few years with some campuses having it, some not. Then it was everybody was having it, but people have done different materials, sometimes the same thing every time.
Right.
This is the first year we're actually going to create an original manuscript for Good Friday. And it'll be a little different, and when we get to that, we'll talk about it. It'll be a little different than a typical Sunday morning message, but it will be an original manuscript that you want to schedule a teaching pastor to deliver.
Right, yeah, and be thinking in terms of not, well, this is how our location has always done Good Friday, so wouldn't we do it the same? No, because actually this topic and the way we're handling Good Friday fits within the construct of the series Jesus Is, as you'll see. But let's start with week 1, or actually the series overview. What in general, what is the series trying to accomplish?
Okay, well, we're springboarding off a book by the same name by Judah Smith, and so really we're looking at the character of who was Jesus, and making the point that whether you are just exploring Christianity, whether you are someone that's a new Christ follower, or whether you've been someone that's been following for decades, there's always more to discover and understand about who Jesus is. So, part of it is about better understanding the person of Jesus, but then the next part of that is, though, because of who Jesus is, it changes the way that we get to live. And so in every one of these messages, we want it to be not just, this is who Jesus is, but it's also because of that, now I get to experience this as his follower.
Gotcha. All right, well, it sounds like a great way to get to Easter for sure. So let's get started, and we'll start with week 1. March 26th, Jesus is... ...
Your friend.
Yes, he is.
He is. And we will be looking at the story of Matthew, being Jesus calling Matthew, and Jesus going to spend time with Matthew and all his tax collector and sinner buddies at a party at his house. But obviously, as you read through the New Testament, part of what the Pharisees complained about Jesus was who he hung out with, who he chose to hang out with. And so we're going to look at, okay, well, who did Jesus choose to hang out with? And even though Jesus is your friend, this message will definitely have an opportunity to help people find their way back to God, to be looking at people that have not yet made that decision. We're actually going to also, though, kind of through the back door maybe, hit the people that already are Christ followers and maybe don't recognize that I think even as Christ followers, sometimes we have this tendency to look at people as, those people versus me. And we tend to have a sliding scale of sin, of kind of like, I'm good, but those people, and usually we always put ourselves in the good group, not in the those people group. And so in some ways we're going to try to hit people over the head a little bit with, no, we're all those people. We are all sinners.
Right.
But then the good news of this message is Jesus is a friend of sinners.
Right.
And Jesus is really only a friend of sinners.
It turns out, yeah.
It turns out. So it's actually, it's actually not bad news to discover that you're a sinner, because Jesus wants to be your friend.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. It feels like, I mean, without it having been, or is it in the process of being planned, or we're almost there?
No, we're not there yet.
So, but I'm thinking just in terms of like who we want the audience to identify with, or who, what lens we want them to look from. That it somewhere in the middle kind of shifts a little bit.
Yeah.
To be able to try to hit
That
the
they are
different
Matthew.
audiences. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Which I think we might have accidentally become Pharisees.
Yeah.
In the midst of our Christ following.
Yep. Absolutely. And where then the turn in this one is because Jesus is a friend of sinners, because Jesus wants to be your friend. When we come to know that, we come to experience his love and acceptance of us, it empowers us to love and accept one another. Hopefully it empowers us to let go of our unintentional Pharisee ways,
Right.
and not see others as those people.
Oh, right. And you've got that in quotes there on the last page of this. We love because he first loved us.
Yes.
Right. Kind of the
Yep.
ability to do that is because of Jesus and his friendship and
Yep.
his lordship. All right. I
Yep.
dig it. All right. Week 2 then, first week of April. And this time, Jesus is the point.
Yeah. And I think actually this one might end up being a little surprising in the angle that we're taking on it, because it's really going to be a message that's about rest, which, when you hear Jesus is the point, you might not think that
Right.
at first. But part of that is I think we're going to help people see all this striving and trying to prove ourselves and trying to find significance and trying to climb the ladders of success and all of that stuff that we're stressing ourselves out with. We actually can rest from that when we realize Jesus is the point of life, that we're not the star of the show.
Yeah.
that he is. And so even we can, I think, sometimes do that in our spiritual journey, as we feel this like, oh, I have to be good, I have to be better, I have to do all these things, and we don't even realize, and intentionally, even spiritually, we're trying to earn our way to God.
Right. Yeah. We're still operating under the premise that if I don't do these things, he's going to be pleased with me
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so in some ways, my hope is in this week, a lot of us can just take a big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And realize I don't have to be the point of my life.
And the verse, it's less of a story and more of just kind of a communication about the metaphor of the yoke.
Yeah.
Is there anything there that we, or other than, it gives us there you'll find rest?
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus says, "Come to me, who you are weary and burdened." So we're going to be trying to speak to the weary and the burdened, and say, you can live a different way because Jesus is the point.
Yeah. All right. I like that.
All right.
That's an off-speed pitch.
Yeah.
That's good.
A little bit different.
All right. Week 3 then is Jesus is here.
Jesus is here. And this week, I think, again, you never know how it'll hit the audience or hit our attenders, but we're gonna approach this one keeping in mind the person that's really struggling, which is probably almost all of us. Just somebody that's really struggling with something that's hard. We're looking at the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, where Lazarus dies, and it feels to Mary and Martha like Jesus had abandoned them.
Yeah.
That he waits, and in some ways, you look at that physically. He waited. He wasn't there. But through this story, then in the research that we're doing on it, look at the way that Jesus, how he kind of interacted with each of them, and he interacted with them different, Martha and Mary. And so we're gonna look at that and some of the stuff Tim Keller's written about that. But one of the things I love in the story, is that simple verse, Jesus wept, and to realize in that, why, like, he knew that he was about to raise Lazarus. He knew the outcome of the story, but yet this emotion you see in him. And I think that tells us something about who Jesus is when it comes to this hard stuff we're going through in life. Sometimes we feel like he's distance, or he's holding out on us or something. Like, no, he's the Jesus who's weeping
Right.
tears alongside of us.
Yeah, even though he may know the outcome, an outcome that we don't, that Mary and Martha didn't. But it didn't stop him from being present in that moment and being empathetic and feeling the same things that we're feeling.
Yeah. And so in this message, we want to convey that Jesus is here. He's here with you no matter what you're walking through. I mean, some of that's even, the Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death kind of thing. He's here. And the result in my life because of that is that I can make it through anything.
Yeah.
That I'm never alone because he's here.
Yeah. That's good. And, we currently have this weekend identified as an all-church baptism Sunday, and so this is an opportunity for both scheduled, programmed, signed-up baptism experiences and also spontaneous baptism experiences for people to say yes to this notion that Jesus is here and to actually step forward, take a step in following him through baptism. Now, it is also currently identified as our Big Give Sunday for the Power of One, which is the series that we just finished, and so there's a lot going on that Sunday, and we're still having some conversations about how exactly to fit that all in, and so stay tuned for that. But just know that those are kind of the things that are happening with the particulars of this particular Sunday as opposed to maybe the overall series or even what this week is hitting. All right, so now we are into our Good Friday, which is what we're calling week 4, but which is really just the Friday before Easter.
Yes.
So let's talk about Good Friday. Jesus is grace.
All right. Well, I think in the vein of similar to what maybe we have done, you want to think about the mood of this night being, we're not really looking for humor.
Right.
Here we're not looking for, we want this to be a remembrance of that evening. I would say at this point, what we're thinking with the message is that it probably will be shorter than a 25, shooting maybe more for the 15 to 18, knowing that there were, just the nature of this type of service. That if you've ever gotten to experience the Sean Williams kind of script, I hate this day, I love this day.
Right.
It might be more in that type of vein of a little more like artistic
Sure.
than necessarily here's the 3 points because we want to tell the story of this night.
Yeah, I would say poetic, is a word that comes to mind for me. It has that kind of placement to it.
So in the angle of this, we were thinking about, just this darkness, this ugliness of this night, but also kind of relating it to ourselves in that, like of almost being able to tell the story by thinking about how much we are like the characters in the story. So, you have the parts of the story that are about the disciples, whether that's them falling asleep on Jesus in the garden, or whether that's them abandoning them, or whether it's Peter denying him. Like, I'm not sure what parts we'll really focus on there. Right. But when we think of that, and you see his failure, Jesus' friends' failure in his lives, I think of the ways that I often fail to love people right. And then, the religious leaders and the hypocrisy you see there. Think of Pilate, the ways that I sometimes just kind of wash my hands of things. And,
right.
And so in essence, we're kind of leading to this place of realizing that a lot of the ugliness that I see in the story is I recognize that ugliness is also in me. But when you come to the point of the cross, you realize it's not about what I have or haven't done. It's about what he did. And so...
and that's when you get this transformation from something that was ugly
to grace,
to something that's beautiful.
Yes.
That's what grace is.
Something beautiful. And really obviously we'll be using scripture as we talk through the story, but I imagine the ending of it, because again, on Good Friday, you want to you don't want to lead all the way to the empty tomb.
Right.
You kind of want to leave that feeling hanging. So I'm imagining towards the end of this message is where, on the map there it says, because this night is not about the ugliness of what he didn't do, it's about the beauty of what he's done. I can almost imagine, for it's by grace you have been saved. It's not yourself, it's a gift of God. Jesus on this Jesus' grace, and on this ugly night, grace saved us. I can almost imagine that being the end of the talk.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
And you kind of just,
Yeah, let it trickle
that's
away.
what happened
Yeah.
on this night, and, come back for the sequel in a couple
Right,
days.
exactly. Part 2,
Yeah.
Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, that's great. I think that's going to be really fun to brainstorm for sure. Let's talk a little bit then about Easter Sunday. Not a big deal. Not a whole, it's
Nah.
that we kind of are.
Not a lot of people will be there.
No, it's just kind of another Sunday, just another day. Jesus is, wait for it,
Alive!
That's right. Jesus is alive. So where are we headed for this Easter Sunday?
Well, and in some ways, this, in the big idea statement, Jesus is alive. In Jesus, you're offered a new way of living. That new way, that it's almost like a series encompassing statement, a new way of living. And so, we're going to be looking at Ephesians 2. I'm sure we will, in some way, incorporate an actual, like Matthew 28 account of He is risen and that.
Right.
But the focus of this one is going to be Ephesians 2. Talking about, like He's alive and how His resurrection also means our resurrection. So this passage obviously starts off, you were dead in your transgressions and sins. But because of what Jesus did, we too come alive. And then, as you can see in the map, again, we're still doing research on that, but, we're looking at almost walking through this passage. What does that new way of living mean?
Right.
And it probably gives us the opportunity in each one of these, a new courage, a new freedom, that to really hit some felt need stuff too.
New purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's great. Yeah. And maybe not obviously, but I also think that service will also have components of it of trying to invite people to the next thing and get, encourage those attenders who show up for that one Sunday to, really, if they can experience some life change here that says, hey, you know what, this is worth maybe coming back next week. So no pressure is the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Jesus is. There it is. Did you want to go ahead and sign us out since you did such a great job of introducing?
I don't remember what the sign off is.
I don't know what it is.
It's going to be a great series. Hope you come to every week of it because you work here. No, that's not the way it's supposed to go, right? But, all right, thanks. This has been the Big Idea Podcast. I'm Tammy Melchien, and this is Eric Bramlett. Thanks for watching.